I have to admit, I'm conflicted about Spider-Man No Way Home. I feel like Tobey from Spider-Man 2 when he is at war with himself over what he wants and what he needs. There's been a constant battle inside of my head for the past few days. My more adult analytical side is critiquing the hell out of this silly, unfocused, messy fan service filled movie. But the inner child and Spider-Man fan inside of me is saying, shut up, just enjoy it. It's amazing. And I'm not sure which side I'm leaning towards yet. I really don't know how to feel about this movie as a whole. There are specific scenes and moments that I love. And a couple that made me cry like a baby. But I'm not so sure if the sum is as great as its parts. Spoilers. If you haven't seen it yet, and you've somehow managed to avoid the copious amount of spoilers posted all over the internet, you're gonna want to bow out and come back later. But if you saw my thumbnail and clicked on this, you probably don't care. So, let's get right to it. Tobey's back. Andrew's back. Fuck me! Tobey is back! My God, my inner child is screaming with joy. Unadulterated, unfiltered, unmitigated joy. If you've ever watched my channel or seen me on other people's channels, you know that I adore Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. I grew up on those films, and they are forever a part of me. They are directly correlated to my being, my existence as a human. So I was of course ecstatic to see Tobey return in this movie. And also Andrew. I don't love his films, but I love him as an actor, and I really liked his version of Spidey. So my jaw was literally hanging open when I saw all three of them together for the first time. It was akin to seeing Cap pick up the hammer or seeing the Avengers unite for the first time. Unbelievable is a hyperbolic term that is thrown around way too often. But this was actually unbelievable. I never in my life thought I would or could see these three characters in a scene together. I still don't think I believe it. So when they were swinging around together and talking to each other and bonding, it was almost a religious experience. I welled up at the mere sight of Tobey walking through that damn portal. This simple, sincere, nerdy son of a bitch. This was my childhood, my teenage self, and my adulthood all meeting for the first time. It was a perfect concoction of fan service that hit me right in the gut. And I can admit that I am completely biased towards this part of the movie. It was so easy to reel me in, and they did it. But was this to the film's detriment? I'm still working that out because I think I loved the movie. I'm not quite sure. I've never really had this feeling before. I've never walked out of a movie and loved something so much, but at the same time was disappointed by so much. I'm in this metaphorical limbo where my conflicting thoughts are just floating around, and I'm waiting for my brain to give me a final consensus. And a big problem is, and I can admit that this was completely my fault, and not a fault of the film, is that I watched the leak videos days before I saw it in theaters. I fucking ruined it for myself, and I truly regret it. I didn't have that visceral reaction to a lot of these moments because I saw them first on my couch, and I watched them over and over and over again. I still cried twice in the theater, but it would have had a bigger impact if I had never watched those scenes. I can honestly say that. So I need to remove myself from the hype and see this movie again before I can really judge it. The hype and excitement was so tremendous for this movie that some parts just didn't live up to my personal expectations. What I loved the pacing and plot progression of the first 30 minutes of this movie. Peter having to deal with mobs of people constantly berating him and chasing him through the city to the point where he couldn't get any privacy. He couldn't even go to school without everyone videotaping him because he's now a celebrity. His family and friends are being interrogated by federal agents, and no colleges will accept Ned or MJ simply because they know Peter. I loved seeing the consequences of him giving the glasses to Mysterio, and it really had a frenetic pace that instantly hooked me. I love seeing Matt Murdock show up as his lawyer. Daredevil, in my opinion, is the greatest live-action superhero show of all time, and I'm so happy that he is now in this universe. I love the banter between Doctor Strange and Peter. Him casting the spell wasn't as dumb as the trailer made it look. I love seeing all the villains again. I love seeing them interact with each other and some of the conversations they had. I loved Willem Dafoe's performance. I loved Alfred Molina's performance. And I really loved Tom Holland's performance. The scene where May dies is the best acting I've ever seen him do. I loved the dark places he went in this film, and the range he showed, from being a lovable teenage goofball to an angry, revenge-driven son of a bitch. I loved the bridge fight between him and Doc Ock. I loved the apartment fight where Green Goblin was smashing him through multiple floors and beating his ass. I loved that Peter beats Doctor Strange in the mirror dimension using geometry, reminding us of his immense intelligence. I loved Tobey and Andrew meeting for the first time. I loved the scene where the three Spideys talk about their grief. I loved seeing them in a lab doing science stuff together. I loved Andrew's joke about Tobey looking like a youth pastor. I loved the banter between the three of them. I loved seeing them struggle to work as a team. I loved seeing them swing together. I loved some of the throwbacks to other movies. I loved hearing Andrew's theme again. I loved hearing Tobey's theme again. I loved Tobey and Octavius meeting again and catching up, while the Elfman score plays in the background. I loved that Andrew caught MJ from falling and redeemed himself. I loved seeing them hug each other in the end. I loved the final fight between Spidey and Goblin. I loved that he was gonna straight kill him, and I loved that Tobey was the one to stop him. I loved the incredible effects. I loved a lot of the jokes. I loved seeing a lot of practical hand-to-hand combat. I loved Tom's new suit in the end, and I loved the stakes in this movie. He literally lost everything and now has to start all over again because of his mistakes, and that is what Spider-Man is. I loved a lot about this film. What I didn't love, even with all of my many praises, there's something missing. That intangible element that makes a movie fully work. I'm not sure if it's there. I liked the first part of the movie, and I liked the last part of the movie, but they feel like completely different movies directed by different people. I know the Mysterio stuff was just the catalyst to get the multiverse plot going, but they rushed through it so fast and it was fixed so easily that it was kind of inconsequential in the end. The biggest revelation of Peter's life gets fixed in like 20 minutes. Daredevil just shows up and tells him that all of the murder charges won't stick. Okay, cool. The world learning Spider-Man's identity could have been a whole movie in itself, and it just felt a little useless. Then the middle part of the movie is Peter catching and hanging out with some of his arch enemies from the comics, because he wants to help them. He wants to cure them and send them back to their universe. It's a nice sentiment, and I like that Peter wants to save all of them, but seeing him just hanging out with Electro and Norman Osborn and Happy's man cave as they make jokes and callbacks to the previous movies was a little weird. It was a greatest hits of, remember this guy? There was a moment where I was like, okay, we know all of your stories and origins. Why are some of these conversations happening? Most of the villains were just less compelling this time. Sandman barely gets anything to do. The Lizard is a complete waste, and Electro is a walking urban stereotype. They just want to go home. There's no personal vendetta against Peter or a real reason for us to be connected with them other than, hey, I saw them before. It's that guy from that other movie. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. Now, Molina and Dafoe, they killed it, nailed it, demolished it. They were by far two of the best parts of this movie. The moment that Norman turns back into the Green Goblin, the movie takes off. He beats Peter's ass, taunts him, has some sinister dialogue, and kills Aunt May. But he is only Goblin for 2 scenes in the whole film. Other than that, he's just Norman, walking around looking like a hobo and stealing donuts from a homeless shelter. Don't get me wrong, he's excellent, but I didn't feel a true connection between him and Tom Holland's Spider-Man. He doesn't even acknowledge that Norman isn't in control of the Goblin, and I'm not even sure if he understands what he is or who he is. He just wants to kill him. He doesn't know him, and there's no great dialogue between them where their ideologies clash like in Spider-Man 1. I don't know, something was just off. I loved Tom's acting after May dies, but I don't care about this Aunt May. All she has been from the start is hot Aunt May. Oh, look how hot she is. Remember that old crusty bitch from the last ones? She wasn't hot like this one. She was a nothing character, and they didn't do enough to get me invested in her before she dies. So the moment didn't have the weight it needed to. I only cared because I loved Tom as Spidey, and he was crying. Who was she? What did she stand for? What were her morals? I don't know. The prior films were too busy making her a piece of meat instead of giving us a developed character. But this is the best Marissa Tomei has been, so that's good. And good fucking lord. The dumbest thing in this movie, and one of the dumbest things in the entire MCU, is the fact that Ned Leeds can naturally perform magic out of nowhere. This made no sense, and it's only there for plot convenience. There is one line about his Nana saying they have magic in their family, and then he takes a sling ring and successfully opens up a portal on his first try. It's ridiculous. Doctor Strange is immensely talented with magic, and they even showed in his movie that he was progressing faster than any wizard before, and even he struggled to open up a portal on his first few tries. So you're telling me that Ned, the chubby, cute, jokey side character that is just a regular 17-year-old kid, is more naturally talented at magic than the Sorcerer Supreme? Ah, give me a fucking break. I love seeing my boys again, but how they got there was so distracting. Out of all of the infinite ways they could have brought them back, they decided to have Ned open up a portal for them to walk through. I can't even say it without laughing. And then they are chumming it up with Ned's Nana? Nana Leeds? Can we please dedicate some of this screen time to characters we actually want to see interact with each other? I mean, holy shit, Tobey Maguire talks to Nana more than he talks to Green Goblin. Think about it. Green Goblin was Tobey's arch nemesis in the Raimi movies. He was his first villain, he tried to kill Aunt May, he tried to kill Mary Jane, he tried to kill a bunch of kids, he fractured Peter's relationship with his best friend, and they were the duo that revolutionized comic book movies together 20 years ago. And they don't say one single line to each other? Come on. Tobey talks to Doc Ock, he talks to MJ, he talks to Sandman, he talks to Nana, he fights the Lizard and Electro, but he doesn't have a single moment with Norman Osborn, even after he gets stabbed by him in the ribs? Come on, have him tell Tom that Norman's not in control and to have mercy on him or something. He says he's been thinking about a cure for Gobby for a long time, but it doesn't seem like it. You have all of this fan service and dialogue to make the audience cheer, but you couldn't fit in one line between the men who started it all. There are some things like this in the film that I think were just extreme oversights. Yes, I personally wanted Tobey to have some more moments, because he was the granddaddy of all of this. We waited 14 years to see him again, and I expected him to blow me away. But he was just good. I have to accept that, and maybe when I do, the movie will be better for it. But I'm sorry, is it so wrong to want more Tobey? If you're gonna show me Tobey, give me Tobey. Don't give me caricatures of Tobey and Andrew. Give me the real characters. Give me the great moments like in Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2. Give me the gut-wrenching emotion. Give me the sincerity. But he and Andrew were just a side dish to accent Tom's stories, so it's whatever. I knew this was gonna happen, but I personally don't think Tobey got enough time to shine. He stops Tom from killing Goblin and gives him a nice look. But what's the lesson that Tom learns? Where's that wow moment in the finale? I just feel like it was missing it. Because Tom wanted to kill Goblin. Then the two Peters give him a pep talk and he's fine for like 30 minutes. He's quipping with them and having a good time making cures and talking about the coolest villains they fought. But then he goes back to trying to kill the Goblin. I get that the lesson is trying to be, don't go down that dark path, Peter. It's a pit that you'll never escape from. Don't do it. But I felt that he learned that in the prior scene, then just forgets it after they make a cure for Goblin and he agrees to cure all the villains. He wants to kill him, then gets convinced otherwise, then he wants to kill him again. Then one look from Tobey convinces him not to do it again? I don't know. It just didn't track for me. And even though I loved seeing Tobey and Andrew again, a lot of it felt like a missed opportunity. Instead of really going for an epic and emotional journey between the three of them, where they all learn something, they kind of just stand around and have conversations that the audience wants to hear. References to Tobey's back pain, his web shooters, villains they fought, the pointing meme. I really liked seeing it and it made me smile, but it could have been so much more. They had an opportunity to really have some amazing moments between the three of them, but it was mostly jokes. Even Andrew and Tobey's last line in the film was an MCU quippy joke. Instead of saying something sincere and impactful in their last moments together, they make a joke about how Tobey's stab wound hurts really bad. And they even make a joke about Harry Osborn's death with Ned. They took the death of Peter's best friend and used it as a tool to advance Ned's character. It just seemed like a greatest hits movie where they reference everything they can, but it was written by average writers. A lot of it rang hollow or wasn't delivered in a meaningful way. I don't know. There were a handful of really great scenes between the Spider-Men, but it felt more meta than it should have. Just 30 minutes of winking at the audience. And I think a lot of people are caught up in the hype of seeing them again, and they aren't really looking at what they did in the film. The content of the characters' actions. So this movie goes from being Far From Home 1.5 to a Doctor Strange Spider-Man team-up film, to a movie about hanging out with villains, to a dramatic film about loss and the consequences of power, to a jokey, fun buddy movie, and then back to an intense, dramatic action film about stakes and responsibility. It was a bit messy and inconsistent in a tonal sense. Some movies balance different tones very well, and this one does it a lot, but it just felt like 3 different movies shoved into one. I think it worked for the most part, but this is like if The Amazing Spider-Man 2 succeeded at what it was trying to do. Introduce a lot of characters, too many characters to be frank, have some great action, be really funny, and also have emotional stakes at the end. This movie made me laugh, it made me cry, it made me clap, it made me angry, it made me roll my eyes, it made me sad, it made me happy, and it made me walk out of the theater very confused and deflated. It's hard to admit when something doesn't live up to your expectations and level of hype, but I don't think this did. And it wasn't bad by any means. I really loved most of it, but even after saying all of this, I still don't know how I feel about it. I guess I'm satisfied in some ways, but unsatisfied in others. Maybe I'll watch this film again and really hate it. Maybe I'll watch it again and completely fall in love with it. Or maybe I'll feel this way forever. constantly battling myself about if I loved the fan service or hated it. If I loved the returning Spider-Man or if I think they were just tools to get an emotional response from the audience. If I loved the villains or thought they were wasted and underutilized. I don't know. But if you take anything from this video, it should be that I really like this movie. I think I love it? Damn. I still don't know. I'm just conflicted. But Tobey and Andrew though, woohoo! Boy, that was awesome. I loved it. Damn you, Kevin Feige and Sony, for making me feel like I'm going through menopause.